Right on, right on. It is halfway through the week. As always, it is the end of the beginning, the boring part, Monday, Tuesday. We're over that. This is where the weekend starts. This is where the weekend begins. As always, we are your Island of Misfit Toys. We are Jason Pearlswhite. We are the one and only Psycho Steve. We are the very rainbowish bag of Skittles, Bobby Dreyer. We are Angel Alamo, and I'm Jay. We really appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in and rocking out with us. We look forward to this time every single week, but that's enough about us, because the fact of the matter is we're just the pawns. Let's kick it over to the king. That's always going to be the guest of the show. Andre Comeau, how are you today, sir?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man, for sure. For anybody who's not familiar with Andre's work, he's a musician, husband, father, an original cast member of MTV's The Real World New York, and a current cast member of Real World New York, The Homecoming and everything. So why don't we start off with just what's fresh, Andre? How's everything going? Because you are kind of going back and revisiting your former castmates from that original season, back when those type of shows that are all too common now were not a thing at that time, and you guys really broke the mold on that. So talk about what was going on with the current season and revisiting what you remember about the original.
Sure. Well, we did the first reality show ever. The first season of Real World was the first modern day reality show. And it was a brand new genre of entertainment, and it none of us expected it to become what it ultimately became. When they reached out to me back in it came together really quickly, the reunion, because they reached out to me, all of us, in December of 2020, and I received the contract at the end of December over the holidays, and we were shooting by the second week of January. And in order to do all that, we had to quarantine in New York, because these are times of COVID and the COVID restrictions and everything. It's very, very strict in terms of production. So we had to quarantine in New York for 2 weeks beforehand, 10 days. So I was out there on January 5th, ready to quarantine and getting ready for the shoot. It was crazy. It was. I'm so glad that they managed to get it together so quickly and so professionally. When we shot the first season of Real World, it was pro, but it was very much on a shoestring, and the entire production, it was all new, and the technology was so outdated at this point, and you're talking about cameras that were, bigger than the screen, and you'd have some guy lugging cable behind him. It was a real process. Nowadays, one hand, covers the whole camera, and so production is streamlined quite a bit. And those guys that worked on this new season of Real World were just the most professional. Speaking just for myself, I had a great time. I had a blast. I really enjoy the company of that cast, my cast of Real World. And it was great seeing them. We've obviously, we've all kept in touch over the years, via texting, or, I travel to New York for work rather often. So I would call Heather or Kevin when I'm in town, and run into them, maybe grab lunch, grab dinner, have drinks, so on and so forth. I live in Los Angeles, so and this is clearly a destination that most people come to at one time or another. So whenever they're in town, they call and we try to meet up. But it had been since the early 90s since we were all together in the same room. So, that was super attractive to all of us, and we all jumped at the chance to do that. Like I said, I had a blast.
That's awesome, man, for sure. That's so super duper cool. And being that you are a musician and, a performer and all that kind of stuff, did being involved in that show back then on a channel like MTV, which at the time was still considered a music channel and not as much as it is now, did you get any kind of a thrill out of something like that, being like, that's super cool, I'm involved on this thing that MTV is doing?
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, we were all so excited about having our, music and our band so heavily featured on the network that appealed to our generation, Gen X. And it spoke to Gen X in a way that nothing else did, directly to Gen X specifically. There were some drawbacks. In 1992, it was, the time of Nirvana, as Bobby had mentioned previously. And, I'm a big fan. I've always been a big fan. But, if you remember, Nirvana and Kurt Cobain specifically was very anti-establishment, very anti-corporate. And that whole ethos of anti-corporation, anti-commercialism did not work in our favor, being so closely associated with what turned out to be kind of a sort of a show that wasn't as edgy as a hard documentary. When, as the show was sold to me, we expected it to be a little more documentary style. And when I saw it, I realized it was, kind of closer to a soap opera than a documentary. So I knew immediately that it was going to be trouble for the band, and I can, just say without hesitation that, it certainly helped the band, but in many ways it hurt as much as it helped.
Sure. No, absolutely. Definitely. Psycho Steve, man, let's kick it over to you, brother. Why don't you jump in on this?
Okay, so I followed you and saw you before you were, of course, on The Real World, because we talked about this on Facebook Messenger prior to you coming on, about how you and the guys played a couple of venues in New Jersey. I'm still in New Jersey. For example, you played the Birchville.
Yeah.
So, and then also,
so we lived in New Jersey. We lived in we had a house in Edison,
right.
And we were there for a full year before we ever started shooting Real World. And that was the whole purpose of that, was to play New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, that whole East Coast metro New York area.
Right.
And we did. We played all of those clubs in Jersey.
Record setter in East Brunswick. When you guys came out with your CD, you were all excited. You would bring us a copy and be like, before it comes out, here you go. So I have to dig up my archives. Exactly. And then I saw you at the Limelight.
Cool.
And then Bobby brought it up before about the Cell Block.
Wow, you really got to see the band a bunch.
Yeah, because then you talked about Kiss, and that's my band. And then you talked about like covers that you did, because you didn't. I remember seeing you do Kiss covers, but then you also did a couple alternative rock and some metal, things like that.
Yeah. Well, we definitely had varied influences. We listened to everyone from Bob Dylan to Nirvana. I mean, really, it was all, and for that matter, early rap, Public Enemy and NWA. Certainly I had all of their records at the time. And, we definitely listened to some real, we had varied influences, a lot of Midwestern music, Replacements, Soul Asylum, that kind of thing, as we're originally from Detroit, Michigan, and we all moved out to the East Coast. So we brought some of that Midwestern, our Midwestern influences with us. We definitely, we tried to show that in our choices of covers as well. A lot of Kiss, a lot of Black Sabbath,
right.
As those are, crowd pleasers. And who doesn't? I love to hear when a band covers one of my favorite '70s prototypical metal songs. I mean,
I gotta remember you did War Pigs too one night.
NIB.
Yeah, and I'm like sitting there going, as soon as you mentioned Sabbath, I'm going, I remember him pulling a Sabbath cover out. I'm just going,
yeah, love early Sabbath. I mean, all Black Sabbath, but I mean, I'm a huge fan, and any chance I get to pull out some of those 70s influences, I'm game, because that's my jam.
Right on. So my question is, was guitar your first instrument or your voice your first instrument?
Well, voice, certainly. I should mention, my mom was in a band with her 7 brothers and sisters on Capitol Records. That's how I grew up. They were on tour. They were on all of the variety shows of the day. They were on Ed Sullivan. They were on David Frost's show, Mike Douglas. They did all of those shows of the day. And my earliest memories are of being on tour with their band. It's my aunts and uncles, all of them, they were, it was a big family band. I don't know how
like
old
the Osmonds.
Yeah, no, very much like the Osmonds. It was very much a thing in the 70s, having these Partridge Family kinds of family bands. It was not terribly uncommon. Jackson 5, the
Osmonds.
Yes, exactly. And my family, the Primo family, my mom's maiden name, they were one of them, and they were on all of these shows. So, my earliest memories are of their shows and being on tour with them. And they opened up for acts like Robert Goulet and Doris Day and those kinds of old school variety kind of Vegas-y things. But amazing 6-part, 8-part harmony, and that's what I grew up on. So to answer your question, voice has always been the very first thing. I knew how to sing before I knew how to talk, but piano was the first instrument I ever took lessons on, and then drums, and I took years of drums, I started on piano when I was 6. Moved to drums about 10, only played drums for a couple of years, because by 13 guitar was everything. And then I moved to guitar, and I've been there ever since.
Awesome.
Something about being at the front of the stage, man, where
That's
people where people of a certain gender can see you better.
That's right.
You're not pulling the wool over the eyes of this crew, man. We've all been around too long.
That's good.
Speaking of somebody who likes to pull the wool over people's eyes, Bobby, I think we need to hear from you.
Okay. So groundbreaking, MTV came out, and look, we're going through
Jump around.
promotion, we're really effed up times right now.
That's okay.
But the trial's going on now. April 29th, 92, the riots hit in LA. You guys were on Rodney King. So we have George Floyd right now. We were all talking before you came on, and Jason and I were like, we all of us watched the homecoming, and we're just sitting here going, man, shit hasn't changed.
The parallels are terrifying. It's
that, and I'll bring up the other thing real quick. The fight between Kevin and Becky on the show. And it wasn't really a fight. It was a conversation. I love how you guys said it was really a dialogue. It was that, but shit hasn't changed.
The parallels are a sad commentary. We cannot, I like to think that, I've certainly evolved in my thinking and my attitude and my it's shocking what we've all seen in with social media, the advent of social media and cameras being everywhere. They're ubiquitous. They are literally everywhere you turn, there's the camera. So we've all seen the injustices in this world. And, it's one thing to hear about them. It's another thing to see them with your own two eyes. And because when you just hear about it, I'm cynical and I would think, well, there's more to the story. He couldn't have really been shot in the back. He must have been, holding a weapon or something. But when you see it with your own two eyes, a unarmed person shot in the back, and then the cop, obviously a rogue cop. I don't believe all cops are bad, but the rogue cop then throws a gun on the ground to make it seem like the unarmed victim that he just murdered was actually holding this gun. I mean, when you see that, everything becomes very clear. And it's one of the things that, Kevin Powell is an activist, and he's been an activist since he was old enough to speak his mind. And, I think he very much unfairly got branded as just an angry black man, somewhat of a squeaky wheel. And the truth is that he wasn't wrong about anything.
No,
not wrong about anything. And, it's one of the things that I was looking forward to being able to really speak to when getting together and, just sort of let him know that, obviously he and I have had some wonderful times outside of real world, off camera over the years. But it was definitely something that I wanted to mention on camera and let the world know that, I have an immense amount of respect for Kevin, and that, I feel that he was unfairly branded because really what he was just talking about an uncomfortable truth that we all need to acknowledge. I certainly don't think that he and I differed back then, but I think I was, misinformed in thinking that I was, somewhat, persecuted as a long-haired, white kid who got hassled by the police in New Jersey. It's nothing in comparison to what people of color go through. And that's just a fact that, is an uncomfortable and very real situation that we've all seen unfold countless times. So it was, and clearly, the real world race is the number one conversation that happened on the first season of the Real World and the homecoming season of Real World. Race is a very big issue, and as we were saying earlier, the parallels of this time in history and that time in history are clear. And we back then, 1992, we were just getting off of 14 years or 12 years of conservative policy. First 8 years of Reagan, then 4 years of George Bush Sr. And this year, we've just been through 4 years of Donald Trump and his administration. So those parallels are clear, and we're unfortunately dealing with the same social injustices and the problems of society.
Well, my question is, did you think when this started out, you guys moved in and we watched the show, that you were going to play this, it's 30 years, but looking back now, that you were a part of history? You guys were groundbreakers, and the homecoming, which is amazing. I really recommend anybody, if you're a fan of the Real World or never seen it or whatever, watch it, watch the first ones and watch this. And it's like, wow, you guys are a freaking time capsule. But did you think that would have you?
Of course not. No. None of us thought that it was going to be none of us thought that we would be talking about it 30 years later. None of us. I mean, if you think about what was airing on MTV at that time, you think about like remote control.
90210.
Do you remember remote control on MTV?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hell yeah.
So that those episodes aired twice. I mean, they never aired again, and that's what
Colin Quinn,
you just assumed. That's right, and so many big name comedians sprung from that, and a lot of those shows, the Ben Stiller show, a lot of these shows that very legitimate people were involved in, they were allowed to fade away, but Real World was not, and Real World definitely. Whether we like it or not, it had staying power, and people, it's been airing almost nonstop for the last 29 years.
Wow.
And, it's not always airing in the States. Sometimes it airs in, over the years it's aired in different countries. And I always get, I always know that it's airing somewhere because I'll get some letters or emails or, all these from different places. And I know, okay, well, it must be airing in Australia right now or New Zealand or somewhere, and it's just crazy that, it's just been played and perpetuated for so many years because of the very real subject matter that none of us expected it to really continue the way it has.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And the fact of the matter is, this is a very, family, friends, fan-friendly show. We consider ourselves to be very educated, up to date on what's going on, but also like a release when it comes to the bummage and the negative stuff that's kind of out there in the world and stuff like that. But it's definitely important to discuss certain things, especially when, just like Bobby brought up and just like you just, talked about, the parallels, especially of things that do have eerie similarities or things that unfortunately haven't changed over the last 30 years. So Andre, we really appreciate you talking about that from your experience of somebody who, really has been, on TV during two very, insane, social situations and stuff like that. So we really appreciate you talking a bit about that, man. But Jason, absolutely, man. Thank you again. Jason, let's bring you in, brother. It's about that time. Let's hear that voice of yours. Fans, keep the comments and questions coming because I'm going to kick it to Angel shortly. Jason, take it away.
Hey, okay. So, well, first, I just want to, maybe my mom is watching right now or not, but hi, Mom.
Hi, Mrs. Girlsworth.
Hi, Jason.
She asked for the link, so I think she might be watching. Wow,
so I'm sober. No,
he is so well behaved, but he's not always like this.
So, Andre, if you could walk us through the process of how you came to be on The Real World New York, and then 30 years later do the reunion show. Is it something that has been talked about for a while and it just came to fruition, or was it recently? I'd imagine maybe it has something to do with all these reboots that has been happening. But yeah, if you could talk us through the process, that would be great.
Sure. Well, in 1992, Buna Murray, a very young company that really didn't have, that had just sort of, Real World was the first show for this, what became this reality TV behemoth. Buna Murray was the very first show that they produced, and the casting directors were going around in Manhattan to places where young people worked and congregated, and I guess, nowadays that would be something like tech companies or that kind of thing. But back then, one of those companies that they went to was a record company that my older sister Colette worked at EMI Records in Manhattan, and I used to go there all the time, meet her for lunch and just hang out and do whatever. And one time, this casting director had gone there looking to talk to people, and one of her friends, my sister's friends, recommended me to the casting director, and gave the casting director my phone number. And she called me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, we're I met your sister. I saw some pictures and she played me your band," or so, stuff like that. And we're shooting a documentary style television show that's going to be airing on MTV. Would you like to come down and meet with the production to see if it's a fit? And I was 20 years old, and I jumped at it. I was like, absolutely. As I mentioned previously, MTV spoke to our generation in a way that nothing else did, and nothing else ever has. So it was very attractive, and we, I met with them probably about 3 or 4 times. Submitted a video of my friends and me interacting, and probably playing in our when I say playing, playing music at the house, and lo and behold, I got the gig. And then cut to almost 30 years later, I was just working from home, being this after this crazy COVID year. And I see there's a text from Eric Neese from Real World, and it said, "Hey, have you guys been contacted about this? They're talking about a reunion." And immediately I called Kevin, and I was like, "Dude, what have you heard?" He's like, "Yeah, they just contacted. I just heard they or no. I called Kevin, and he said, "Yeah, I saw that from Eric too. I wonder what they want to do." And we were like, kind of like talking and saying it's probably nothing. They've done a couple of reunions prior to this where they bring multiple casts together and kind of do that kind of thing. And I haven't really participated in many of those, as it's not something I don't really want to interact with other Real World casts. It's not for various reasons. But then they contacted Kevin while he and I were on the phone. And he was like, "Okay, this is the casting director. I'll call you right back." And I was like, well, they didn't call me. So I wonder if they're not even going to reach out to me, as I've not participated in some of their reunions, and I'm sure, or maybe, it could be just me, but I was thinking, maybe that rubbed some people the wrong way, and they weren't even going to reach out to me, But then Kevin called me right back and said, they want all 7 of us. They want to bring us in New York and film us living together. And I was like, wow, just us? All 7 of us? I was like, yeah, well, that sounds like fun. I mean, I could maybe, get into that. That's very nostalgic, and it's very, very much, kind of, it's exactly like what we originally signed on for. And I'm game. So when they, and at that point, literally, as I'm still on the phone with Kevin, the casting director called me and asked me if, and I got the sort of some of the details, and, finding out that it was going to be in New York, going to be just the 7 of us, no other cast member, no other casts. I was absolutely on board. And it came together so quick, from the time that they reached out to me at the beginning of December, and then we were shooting. I mean, they whipped this thing up so fast. We were shooting by the second week of January.
Wow.
I come to find out that it's because they had this extremely limited window where the original loft was available.
Real? Wow.
And that was they sold the loft. The owner sold the loft in 2020, and they, in the negotiations of the sale of the loft, the old owner had left, and the new owner was going to take possession February 1st. So there was this 3-week window where MTV, Buna Murray could come in and rent it, lease it for a month, and do what they needed to do in terms of, and they did a lot, put in drywall so that it separated the production office from the living space, and create bedrooms for the cast and everything like that. So they had a lot of work to do, that, put up lights and all of the production aspects as well. So, there was a lot to do, but a very limited window. And, had anything happened to that loft or to us, to where we couldn't have made it, we wouldn't be sitting here talking, because they wouldn't have postponed this. It's literally because the planets aligned and allowed us to get back into that loft, and all 7 of us were, either available or made ourselves available. And that is why we're sitting here talking with you fine folks right now.
That's cool.
Wow, talk about luck. Being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that and preparation. I mean, it's so much of they were, as I mentioned, they're real pros, and they really did their homework, and they nailed it.
And they had to put everything back to the way it was before.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Very tight window.
Yeah.
By February 1st, that they had to clear all that stuff out. All that drywall had to be demoed, all of it. I mean, it was back to a big 4,000 square foot empty loft by the time the new owner moved in.
Absolutely, for sure. Actually, before I kick it to Angel, I just want to piggyback off something that off this topic with Jason, because it just kind of something came to light about it with the stars aligning and it working out so well. Because last year, 2020, COVID's never been something that we've, ever dealt with, not only in the country, let alone the world. I mean, there was SARS, there was swine flu, which was really scary and really awful, but even those didn't quite hit like COVID did. And especially with New York, which also has been under its share of criticism as being a hot zone at times. Andre, how did you guys feel about your safety during the taping of that?
Terrifying. Well, we were being tested for COVID every day. I mean, every day, sometimes twice a day. The real scary part was the quarantining. The flight from Los Angeles to New York was the real nail biter, because those are conditions that we have no control over. I can't control who I'm sitting next to. I can't control who's in the plane. And those are conditions that we just could not control. So it was the quarantining beforehand that was really nerve-wracking. Once we were, once I was in the hotel in quarantine, I knew, I wasn't going out anywhere, and I didn't see anybody. So I knew that, I wasn't going to come down with it. And we were all treated the same way. What happened with Eric, I don't know if you guys have seen.
Yeah.
So Eric did catch COVID. And what happened, and I don't think I'm divulging any big secret, he landed in Cleveland and drove to the New York area with his mom. And I think what happened is, he just, caught it somewhere from Cleveland to New York, stop for gas somewhere, or, I don't know, I mean, something happened in between there, because we were tested before we ever got on the plane. So, I mean, the regulations are pretty strict, and they've some pretty stringent rules. So, we were all COVID negative before we ever traveled to New York, and it just was a stroke of uniquely bad luck for Eric to catch it between, LA and New York.
Gotcha, man. But all in all, from your experience, MTV was taking it seriously, and
Oh my God,
you guys felt protected.
So seriously. And, yeah, I mean, I was definitely, I was taking every precaution. As soon as we were in contract negotiations, I have a 4-year-old daughter that we took out of daycare and brought her home. I wasn't going to take any chances. We took every precaution to make sure that, because had I tested negative before my flight, I would not have been able to participate.
You mean tested positive?
I'm sorry, tested positive before my flight. I would not have been able to participate. So, so we took every precaution, and I can say that, to answer your question, yes, those folks took it extremely seriously, and there was a COVID, officer on set at all times.
Awesome, man. Right on. Cool, man. Angel, thanks for your patience, brother. It is all you all day.
Cool. I got a question from Matt Porter. He wants to know how much of the real world was scripted.
None. Zero.
And,
Zero. I mean, okay. So if the question is what we see, is that how it actually happened?
Yeah.
Well, then there's some gray area there, because really what happens is editing changes the narrative. When you edit something, if you edit what we're talking about right now and exclude any portion of it, it changes what the perception of how people see it. And that is the part that is somewhat in question of how it really happened. But I can say this, that for my season, what anything that I ever participated in, including the homecoming, absolutely none of it is scripted, faked in any way. They never told me to do something that I then had to go and do that I wasn't already doing. Had maybe once or twice in my entire experience, if they said, hey, if they pulled me aside and said, hey, your battery died on your microphone, can you repeat that so that we have a clear line reading of some, and I don't know that they did, but that's something that possibly could have happened that would speak to that a little bit. But was there ever anything that was fabricated cut from cloth like that? No, absolutely nothing.
So just to piggyback really quick, so nobody did anything like behind the scenes to cause any
additional
drama or anything like that?
Okay, so
Stoke the bear.
apparently they had an experiment early on in the first season where they brought a book that Eric had appeared in, and it just appeared in the loft without anybody buying it, and it was there, and it was obviously there to cause some drama and some a reaction. It was there to cause a reaction. What happened was Eric was extremely upset by it and almost threatened to leave the production. And at that point, and this was like probably the second week of the filming, I wasn't there that day. And what happened was, at that point, they brought us all in the room together and said, look, we fucked up. We shouldn't have done this, and we'll never do it again. And that was the only time that I'm aware of where production actually did try to tinker with the formula, and actually produce something that wasn't organically, that didn't organically just happen by one of us. And they immediately recognized that it was a failed experiment, and promised to never do it again, because it backfired on them horribly.
Okay. Interesting.
It's
I gotta add this in. Did the cameras ever go in at a moment where you were just like, dude,
Yeah. Yeah, they never came into the bathroom, but no, I mean, there's actually a funny scene where I was eating something, and I get right into the camera and leave me alone while I'm eating. I need to be left alone while I'm eating. Don't fuck with me while I'm eating. Something like that. And, I mean, there was some of that, but, anything like that was unflattering or unsuitable, it would just have wound up on the editing room floor anyways.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was like any bodily noises or anything where you just go, oh, that was on camera.
Yeah. No, nothing to my knowledge, but maybe, again, if there was something like that, it would have just wound up on the editing.
Because you and Heather hung up and stayed up late, so you kept wondering who.
We were the late night crew. We were definitely the late night crew, and at the time I was smoking a lot of weed. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I certainly was. And that was like my time, and I would stay up and get high.
Glaucoma's gone.
And so, that was definitely, those were my hours. And I had vampires hours at that time in my life. If there were, so there were a couple of instances where I was at a party and someone would pass me a joint, and I would take a big drag off of a joint, and the cameras would see me and just, because they knew they couldn't show it. They knew that. So they had the good sense to just, move the camera away so that they wouldn't film me doing that. But I was stoned as a motherfucker at that time. That's what happened.
And now it's legal. You're like, oh shit, I can go to Jersey.
And I don't do it anymore. So there you go. As soon as it became legal, I'm like, no, thanks. No fun. It's got to be illegal for me to be enjoying it.
Seriously. Angel, back to you, buddy.
Okay, 2 more fan questions. Are you happy with the way you were portrayed on The Real World?
The first season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, certainly, I am not thrilled with my own. I'm fine with how I was portrayed, but I think that my problem stems from my own decision to not be so engaged, and to be less than. I mean, I more often than not I was in the room, but I wasn't really participating as much, and that's that's the fault of my own, and that's the only problem I have with it is certainly, and I addressed that on the new season, where I'm very much more in the mix. And I did that, consciously, because I thought that, upon reflection, I was a little too much of a wallflower, and not as not as in the middle of it as I should have been and could have been, and that was my fault, not theirs.
And I got a music question from Tommy Rice. Do you think MTV made most bands popular from their videos and talent, or both?
Well, unquestionably, it was all about the image and the video. Unquestionably. I mean, the talent was secondary. Milli Vanilli, anyone? It's all about image and how you can sell it. And that's what videos were. I mean, it was merely incidental if the artist was talented. That's a bonus. They weren't selling the talent, they were selling the image. So
You know what was funny? You mentioned Milli Vanilli, and I don't know why I'm gonna admit this on the show, but that was one of my first albums.
Did you get your refund?
No.
Dude, Jason, don't even sweat it, dude. I was a hardcore Nickelodeon baby, and Nickelodeon broke Crisscross. I had that album
dude, Nickelodeon.
on cassette.
It's
Like
hold on
Grandpop on
What is that
here
thing?
now.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Or something like that. I don't know, whatever. Nickelodeon had this thing in my head all these years.
All right,
All the best kid shows came off of Nickelodeon, dude.
I think we need to talk about our contracts after the show. Like, this is the Metal Summit. This isn't like really. All right.
I still want to kick New Kids on the Block's ass.
Angel, get us back.
Boston.
Angel,
Okay.
get us back on track, buddy.
All right, Tommy Rice is going to get us back on track with the second part of his question. Do you think MTV should bring back hard rock metal videos to revamp the new bands of today, or a show like Headbangers Ball or the Metal Summit?
well, I mean,
Angel, you're hired.
I'd love it, but I don't know that it would be so. It's funny. I've been asked this so many times. It's one of the most common questions. Not this question per se, but one of the questions that I've been asked over the years repeatedly is, why doesn't MTV play music videos anymore? And I'd be like, at the time, I was like, why the fuck are you asking me for? I'm not in programming. I don't do this. But the reality is they stopped playing music videos because people would hear a song they didn't like and change the channel. And that's why they stopped playing music videos, because as soon as a song came on that someone didn't like, they'd switch the channel. And unlike a television show where you want to find out what happens after the commercial, no one cared about what happened after the commercial because the song sucks. And so that is why MTV stopped playing music. So to answer your question, Angel, do I think that MTV should be playing hard rock videos? I think that, I would love to see MTV play more rock in general. I think that rock music in general has gotten the shaft from the industry and has not gotten the proper respect that it deserves. I mean, if you look at, the Grammys, if you look at the awards shows, or even, what goes on in film and TV nowadays, rock music is not even, it's not even top 5. It's like, it's way down on the list. And I mean, think of the albums that were up for rock album of the year this year. Not one rock album in the bunch,
No.
And they're usually off the air of the Grammys. Like, that's usually run along the bottom, like, kind of like with like the NFL draft, where like the previous draft picks will get run along the bottom to keep people up. It's kind of the same way when it comes to the Grammys. Like, they'll run the categories like along and be like, these are the winners of these categories. But you're right, Andre.
Yeah, not not aired, not given the proper respect. When a rock icon passes, like Eddie Van Halen did
Oh,
this last year, and they're and what they show is a a guitar and 10-second clip of and not even a very inspired clip of Eruption. I mean, I don't know how many guitar players are in this chat, but that was not Prime Eddie right there, and they could have done. Christ, I could have put together a better tribute to this icon of our genre. I just think that rock music is not given that proper respect. And some of it is of its own doing. The rock music got terribly ridiculous in the late 80s, early 90s. And there's a reason that grunge came along and killed off the dinosaurs. But it doesn't change the fact that there's still great rock music being made today. And it would be wonderful if there was a place, that a centralized place that featured it, even for an hour a fucking week, because even that would be great. And there's sadly not enough exposure, not enough of that.
Cool.
absolutely, for sure.
My
Yeah, Angel,
question is, you have an EP out, Wrong Within. Can you tell us about the making of the songs on the EP?
Sure. Yeah.
And where can fans get it?
Okay. So yeah, the EP Wrong Within, we released in 2020. I recorded it with my producer and drummer, Darren Elpant, at his studio here in Los Angeles. And, I had stopped playing rock music for years. Right around 2000, I kind of threw my hands at rock and was just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm not into what's popular at the moment in rock music. And it didn't really speak to me. And I fell in love with, sort of folk music, and really got into, fell into Bob Dylan's entire career, super deep, and a little even more than that, a little deeper. I got into country, old country, and bluegrass, and that kind of thing. And it really, that music for that time really spoke to me. But right around 2015, I started just organically, because I've been, writing and releasing music this whole time. My band in the early 2000s was called River Rouge, and we released 5 records to a largely apathetic audience in Los Angeles who just wasn't, I wouldn't recommend making country music in LA because nobody gives a shit. But I just started writing a couple of rock songs in 2016, 2015. And I just, no matter how hard I tried, I could not convert them. I couldn't transmogrify them into a folk song that I could play with my band at the time. So I said, well, fuck it. I'm going to, put a rock band together so that I can flesh these out and record them, which was my whole intent, to just record these songs. And, it was like a light turned on. And all of a sudden I'm using a register in my voice that I hadn't used in a long time. And I'm playing my electric guitars that I haven't even broke out of their case in years. I have some beautiful Les Pauls that that they were just sitting collecting dust. So, and I realized, I know it's shameful. I know isn't that terrible? I realized how much I missed it. And when I put these, this collection of songs together, it got a great reaction. Immediately, people were like really into it, and we played a couple of shows, and, I'm hearing, cheering from a crowd, and all of a sudden we got label interest, and so it was super exciting. And obviously at that moment, I just knew, well, this is clearly,
Great. Ace got mad at you for saying that.
nice. That's sweet, man. What year is that? What year is that?
This is this is the third one they put out. So
Okay.
12.
Okay, 2012. Right. Cool, man. Cool. Anyways, yeah, I realized at that moment that, this is what I should be doing. What I was doing in folk and country, I mean, a lot of people can do. What I do in rock, it's a little more, I'm breathing a little more rare air in that space. I can really bring it, vocally and performance wise. So I, we put the album out on Dave Ellefson from Megadeth's label, EMP label group, and then COVID hit, and we had to dash our touring, which we had already booked, and that was heartbreaking because we wanted to go on the road so bad. But what we did instead was just go right back into the studio and start working on the follow-up, which is we are just now putting the finishing touches on, and we're getting ready to release the first single, which I believe comes out next week. And
wow. What's the name of it?
Clean Break.
Clean
Break is the name.
That's exclusive.
Yes, this is breaking news.
It's that's the single and the album name as well. The self-titled single Clean Break comes out next Friday, a week from tomorrow, or a week from this coming Friday.
Week from Friday. So next Friday. Yep.
Correct.
So what about the album?
And the album will come out in April, probably late April. We'll put the album out. Nice. And it's a full length album as opposed to the last one, which was an EP.
Okay. Again, I just have to confirm because this is for like Ballbuster Music as well to promote the breaking news.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. Probably a digital album, Andre. It sounds like that's typically how you're doing your releases.
It's unfortunate. I would love to put out a vinyl album. Even, unfortunately, I don't even have a CD player anymore. I work in music publishing, and everything is digital now.
Yeah.
Even the cars.
Yeah,
they don't have CDs anymore.
That's right. Even my car doesn't have a CD player anymore.
Same with mine. I live vicariously through my iPod.
Yeah, it's awful. And I hate, I'm old school. I'm a dinosaur. I love a physical copy.
Yeah.
I love vinyl, that huge format where you got, the album and all the artwork and the lyrics and the liner notes and
you can probably see them behind me, dude. They're all over the wall.
Miss it. It's great. And I would love to be able to do that. It's not that I don't want to, it's that it's cumbersome. It's expensive to put out a physical copy, especially vinyl. And, when you're, we looked at putting vinyl out, and we still might for this new album, we still might do a vinyl release. Obviously if we do, it's not going to come out at the same time as the digital. It's just, I'd love to do it. I don't have a record player.
Now, Andre, this is a full album you're doing, not an EP, correct?
Correct.
Great.
And what's the name of the band? Just a lot of fans are asking, what's the name of the band?
It's my name, Andre Comeau.
Okay.
That's awesome. Well, Andre, if you do press it, we're going to be in touch so we can buy it, because you got to sign 5 copies and send them out.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
so Andre, will you be doing any rain dance there, sir?
No, I don't play any rain dance songs live. Everything I'm doing right now is more recent. And, rain dance was was definitely a band that, had other songwriters and other folks in it. I have a a great amount of respect for those songs and those albums, but it's not what I do. What I do is a lot heavier. Actually, my band is a little more modern and a little more streamlined and a lot more sort of, just guitar rock.
Awesome, for sure. I'm going to jump in actually right quick, because as we get to the top of the hour, we always take a little quick break to thank our endorsers, thank our sponsors of the show, and just kind of give everybody a quick second to breathe. So we always want to take a second to thank David Rosenfeld from Rosenfeld and Associates, njsmile.com. He's got a fantastic band, Tonal Crush, that I actually just saw play live recently, and they were terrific. So David, thank you so much for being involved with us. On that same note, we always want to thank Brad Lee from BLE, Bradley Entertainment, BLErocks.com. He actually is putting on a show. We got live music coming in. He is putting on a show down here in Baltimore, Maryland, on April 18th, with headlined by the band Roxy Blue. So any fans that are looking to come on in or in the Maryland area that want to get some live music in their veins, BLErocks.com. They also are doing a $25 general admission, a $50 VIP, but are also currently running a raffle that would allow you to be a member of BLE for the full tour, which would include 3 total shows in Jersey, in Delaware, and in Baltimore. So if that strikes your fancy, we definitely want to encourage any fans to get involved with that, since we've all definitely been dying for some live music. We always want to thank Mark and Janet from Rock and Horror Apparel. They're TMS alumni. They've been on a previous episode. We really appreciate everything they do. rockandhorror.com. They clothe members of the Metal Summit. So we thank them so much. We also want to thank Saren Cadaver from Twisted Vines out of Rhode Island. She does like horror decor. She's super duper awesome. She makes like homemade Ouija boards. She makes voodoo dolls, stuff for the walls. So anybody like myself who's big into their horror movies, she's definitely somebody that you want to check out. And we also really want to thank Bubby's Beanery out of Toms River, New Jersey, their coffee house. We really appreciate John and Bubby's Beanery being involved with us and rocking out with us. So thank you all so much to our sponsors and our endorsers. We really appreciate you guys to believe in us and allow us to put together such great shows with such great guests. Fans, stay with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in about a minute or so. So everybody hang tight. We'll be right back.
God, what happened to you? Oh, I hope you feel better. Have a great day.
Sweet baby Jesus.
We're cool. Thank you so much. Again, we appreciate fans, you guys sticking with us for that. And again, thank you again to our sponsors and to our endorsers. Andre, I definitely want to keep it on your music and keep it with music, since that's what we're all about, and it's what you're currently doing presently. But I do want to kick it back to the 90s a little bit, because I loved when you were talking a little bit about like the bands that you were listening to and the bands that were kind of coming out around that time. You had mentioned Soul Asylum, which is a band that I really, really like. Also to
Great
answer
live band.
Oh, fantastic live band.
They were a great live band back in the 90s, man. They were great.
Definitely. And to answer something that you had said previously about guitar players on the show, 3. There's literally 2 guitar players, 1 bass player, a drummer, and Psycho Steve's our hype man. He's our Flavor Flav. So like,
And a
clock.
partridge in a pear
Oh,
tree.
yarmulke, he doesn't have a clock.
but the one thing I always thought was really cool, you know, about your music, you know, from everything that you were doing with Rain Dance to when you were talking about, you know, the other music that you were doing when you were delving in some other genres and stuff like that, because that music that you were doing, it reminded me a lot of those type of bands that were coming out at that time, like a Soul Asylum, like a band like the Gin Blossoms that I actually really, really like quite a bit actually, because this show, we've got such a pretty eclectic group because yeah, we're all rooted in the 80s and we love all that stuff in the 70s. We all love Kiss and stuff. And then, you know, Jason's a big like Sublime and surf rock kind of guy. You know, Angel's our resident trickster guy. You're never going to get Steve and Bobby off of their, you know, Kiss. You know, me, I'm kind of like the goth and roll, as I like to describe it, kind of guy. I'm really into the 69 Eyes and I'm a big Typo Negative fan. So like we really kind of cover from a lot of different directions, but kind of getting back to that 90s sound where you were talking about how grunge was kind of putting the hurts to like the glam type stuff in the 80s rock sound, with coming out of grunge into, you know, Soul Asylum, you know.
Well, you know, I was really into that whole Seattle sound. I mean, I had Ultra Mega OK when it was released. Soundgarden's first, or actually their second
I think it was
album.
their second.
Yeah, it was their second. I had Bleach when it came out. I saw Nirvana before Nevermind was ever out. You know, I mean, I was lucky enough to be really on top of those emerging musical movements, certainly at that time, and definitely heavily influenced by the bands of those eras. Yeah, I mean, you know, and as I mentioned, the Midwestern thing. I mean, coming from Detroit, Michigan. Detroit has a rich musical history that goes, you know, I mean, you pick any genre and we have some of the best music ever created in that genre. And, you know, I'm very lucky to come from that part of the country where music is so highly valued and celebrated. And rock is, you know, thank goodness, rock music is still very, very popular there. Detroit Rock City will always be, right?
Absolutely.
So you know, I think that you know, I'm very lucky to, and you know, I shouldn't take all the credit. The guys in my band at that time were also students of music and very much on the tip of what was going on in music and still are to this day. I mean, Dean Fertitta from Rain Dance, you know, he's gone on to huge successes in music. And you know, Bob Nick, the drummer, he's gone on to his own successes in music up in San Francisco. He's got a metal band up there. You know, and it's, you know, a lot of cool stuff.
For sure. And talk a little bit real quick about just, especially with yourself, like you said, being in music publishing now, like talk a little bit about how you saw music going when you were playing yourself and then how it led into now. Because like you said, rock in the late, especially the early late 90s and the early 2000s still definitely had a pretty strong grip on things, because you had a lot of that indie rock thing when the Foo Fighters got started. You had bands like Third Eye Blind that were doing actually very, very well. And then the very beginning of 2000s, you had bands in that kind of mall punk, that kind of pop punk explosion that happened around there. So rock, which is by no means dead by any means, regardless of what people want to say, definitely still had a very strong hold going. But what was it, just something that, how did you see rock transitioning?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, I definitely, I saw it moving in a direction that I wasn't necessarily getting wasn't really speaking to me, and I'm talking about the sort of the rap rock hybrid that happened, and it just wasn't doing it for me. And I think I rebelled against the entire thing, and just kind of, I said, fuck this. And it just so happened I was looking for something new, and I was looking, I definitely wanted to change everything. And, I really got into, folk, and then, I got really deep into Americana and country, and then bluegrass. I taught myself how to play banjo. I got into guitar players like Tony Rice and the amazing bluegrass bands of the 2000s, like Allison Krauss and Union Station. And these are, we live at a time where, as far as bluegrass goes, some of the greatest musicians to ever walk the earth in that genre were playing in our lifetime. And I was lucky enough to see a lot of them. I can also speak to, just getting back to rock a little bit. One of the artists that I was just an enormous fan of in rock music was an indie artist, but ultimately signed to a major label, Elliot Smith. I was just such an enormous Elliot Smith fan, and I was lucky enough to see. I don't know if anybody here is hip to Elliot's stuff, but if you get the chance, best songwriter of our generation, hands down. No one even comes close. No one comes close.
I'm familiar with the name, but I need to do some digging.
Look him up, man. Look him up. The best songwriter of our generation, hands down. You'll recognize some of his songs. He's been in a lot of like movie soundtracks and stuff like that. But his stuff was amazing, and I was lucky enough to see him perform 8 times before his death, and still to this day, his music moves me in a way that it's hard to even. His influence cannot be overstated. He was the best.
That's awesome, man. Psycho Steve, jump right in, friend.
Speaking of the best, okay. So I want to say thank you to Tom Hazart, that manager, to
Very cool.
facilitate this.
Tom, what's up, Tom?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's watching, but if you are, or if he watches it on our YouTube channel or here live, thank you, Tom. So making the transition from all the genre of music that you're doing now, moving from dirty Jersey to LA. The question is, how did you and Tom get together? Because we've actually had one of the other artists that Tom represents. We had Brandon Cook from Black and Blue, 80s hard rock band, and now he's also doing his New Order band that's more hard rock and more current. So Tom,
well, it's interesting. It's interesting. I could speak a little bit to that. I met Tom in the early 2000s as I was transitioning away from rock music. I had a show at the Viper Room. Jason, your shirt there.
Nice, awesome place. Love it.
I was playing at the Viper Room one night, and I ran into Tom on the strip there, and we had a mutual friend. And we talked a bit about about what I'm doing now and how I'm because at the time my set list was half rock and half like acoustic. And it's a very difficult thing to maintain because some of the rock was very heavy, and then I would get off on these sort of like, I'd bust out a banjo, and it wasn't really, it wasn't a very, it was a very incongruous set list. But I was definitely transitioning away from rock, and I let Tom know that because at the time I believe he was A&Ring at a major. And I was like, yeah, I'm just doing indie music. I've always had a fondness for DIY and indie artists. Not that I don't like being successful or anything, because I do, but there's something about doing it yourself and not having to not having to answer to a department or creativity by committee. That it's nice to not have to play along those rules. But anyways, it was nice to meet Tom, and we just said, good to meet, and so on and so forth. And then as I was passing around my Wrong Within album, the EP, I was speaking to a radio promotions friend of mine named Tim Binder, who was a Rain Dance fan, and we had mutual friends in common. And he actually passed my album to Tom Hazart and to David Ellefson. Tom was like, oh, I know Andre. I met him back in the, 2002 or whatever it was. Have him give me a call. This album sounds awesome. And that's how it went. And, it was really because we had that previous connection. I was like, dude, all right, let's do this. I'm a big fan of long-standing, long-term relationships.
Awesome. And just the second part to that question and everything, as far as is there a band today that you could see being like co-headlining or direct support for?
I would love to open up for Rival Sons. I think they're one of the best rock bands out there right now. And that singer is awesome. He brings it. That dude, Jay Buchanan, is awesome. I'm a fan of a lot of new rock bands, but I would say Rival Sons. I liked their newest album quite a bit. I could name a few others, but I'll stick with that one.
When I was listening to your album, I wouldn't hate to see you. It might sound like a funny pairing, but I kind of was digging on the pairing. I could actually see you opening up for the Struts.
I would love it. Would love to open up for the Struts. They're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another. I like singers who bring it. I like singers who can, get a crowd moving and really, get that. I grew up on a steady diet of Paul Stanley and guys like that. They make the crowd move. And so, yeah, I think that the singer of the Struts, he's the real deal.
Absolutely. Bobby, jump right in, brother.
Yeah. So Rain Dance, when you guys did it, I mentioned, me being from the New Hope type area, Bucks County. You worked with a producer out here, worked with a great band from this area, Ween. So Greg Frye. So how'd you hook up with, That's
a good question. How did we meet Greg Frye? We met Greg Frye through a person that we were working with, sort of management at that time. And Greg had a really cool studio in his log cabin that he built with his own two hands.
That's in Ringo, right? New Jersey.
In Ringo's, New Jersey. Yes, the fucking sticks of New Jersey. Right
over the bridge.
Yeah, so it was great, and we would record there. We would record all of our albums there, and it was pre-Pro Tools, so we would literally, he had a 2-inch tape machine, and we would. We'd live there for, a couple of months and just record. He and his infinitely patient wife, Pat, were very, very good to us to allow us to, live and record there for as long as we did. Because we, we would spend a great amount of time there, and they were very supportive and very, they were great. And honestly, Greg as a producer, to this day, I use many of the lessons that I learned while working with Greg, and I speak of those days very highly. I think of them very highly as well.
Have you been in touch with him? And I got to ask, were you? Did you know anything about the band Ween at the end of during
Sure.
that?
Well, yeah. I mean, they introduced us to the folks in Ween, and I,
Those guys.
the great band, great songs, and they worked with them for years. And Ween's early records were recorded at that same studio with Greg and Pat at either producing or playing on those albums. So I've been very familiar with all of those and their band, all of the guys in the band, Claude, the drummer.
Yeah, I'm good friends with Claude Coleman. Yeah, great guy.
All those guys. We got to hang out and have fun with those people, and we had a real good working relationship out there in Ringo's.
Second part, really quick. Once you get this album out, how the heck can we get, when COVID subsides a little bit and you having a 4-year-old, is it going to be hard to tour? I mean, that being a dad, you just can't pick up and go, hey, I'm going to go out on the, we all got older. Like you said, 30 years have passed. Now you have a 4-year-old, but you got a great album coming out. How do you manage that?
Well, I have an incredibly supportive and patient wife who she's also an incredible mother. And, she's incredibly supportive. She loves, what I do and knows that, that part of what you have to do in order to play music is to get out there and bring it to the people. You can't just, play one show every couple of weeks here in LA and expect that to do anything. It's funny because I'm going to be playing at the end of this coming month, the end of April, beginning of May. I have some shows booked, first shows back in a while. I'm playing in Texas. I've got a show in Houston, in Dallas, and in San Antonio, and it'll be interesting because for one, I haven't played in since this whole shutdown. But I guess to answer your question, how am I going to go about it? I would imagine that much of the touring that we'll be doing will be regional. The kind of thing that we'll do 3 weeks here, 2 weeks there. I mean, look, if I got offered to do 6 months and tour the world, I'd take it. I would have to.
Well, but I got to ask, with the pandemic and that going on, the concerns about coming back home. It's great. You have a supportive wife, but you really have to look at that end.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I'll have to, having the experience on the show and seeing how they treat COVID and, with the testing, I mean, it's really all about the testing. If I can make sure that I'm, after being away for any significant amount of time, and I've also been vaccinated as well. It's really about just making sure that you test negative and being smart, double masking whenever you're in an environment where you can't control it, like an airport or an airplane or something like that. It's an unfortunate new reality that we're all living in. And
think about it. 30 years ago, we were talking about double bagging. Now it's double masking.
Just right.
No, definitely. Right. But I do think it's, positives are happening, everything's looking solid. I mean, you can't keep us shut down forever, but with the vaccine being rolled out and people getting vaccinated, it's definitely making that light a little bit brighter.
I get
Right on.
number 2 on
Today.
Saturday. Yeah.
Hey,
Going tomorrow.
2? Did you get 2 today?
no,
Andre?
I got the first one today.
Oh yeah, 2 I get, and I'm gonna be down. I'll be like Jesus coming out of the tomb on Sunday. Ah!
Right on. Well, real quick, before I kick it to Jason, fans, I want to let you guys know it is last call for alcohol. So please get those comments, those questions for Andre into the feed. That way, when we kick it to Angel, he can ask them to Andre and we can get all of your questions answered. So again, guys, it is last call for alcohol when it comes to questions. So get them right in there so we can ask them. Jason, it's all you, brother.
So Andre, I gotta ask, now that you play banjo, have you ever thought of battling the kid in Deliverance?
No, I have not.
No, sorry. But that's the first thing that popped into my head when you said banjo. But
Well, it's unfortunate. Look, banjo gets a real bad rap, and maybe some of it's justified, but the truth is that bluegrass in general is blue-eyed soul, and it's unfortunate that people give it the another terribly disrespected music and art form, because it has more in common with jazz than it does with country or even blues. It's really a music that is made for virtuosos. It is made by virtuosos, the absolute best of music play that style of music. And you look at those guys, Tony Rice, Bela Fleck, Sam Bush. I mean, they are some of the best musicians alive. I mean, we just lost Tony Rice last year. But literally an absolute monster on his instrument, and his influence, Tony Rice specifically, his influence we are all in his shadow. I mean, literally, that guy, he was the Miles Davis of acoustic guitar. And I mean, there is no, you ask anybody that plays acoustic music, and Tony Rice is right up there.
Django Reinhardt,
Yes,
incredible.
Yes, exactly. Very, very, very much influenced that gypsy jazz kind of style. Amazing stuff.
Now I want to hear Rainbow Connection for some weird reason. Can you do your Kermit the Frog for us? No.
Why do they?
But I just want to fit in real quick it's not a follow-up question, but I'm just going to switch gears a little bit. Since you've experienced a production for like a TV show, even though that it was a reality show, has that ever got you thinking about maybe going down the road of like acting or being on other TV shows or doing movies or anything like that?
Yeah, no. I'm not an actor. I have no interest in speaking other people's lines. At one time, I'm a big fan of film. At one time I considered, I've often, said to my wife or somebody, that, I missed my calling. I should have been a film director, because I love that kind of attention to detail and that kind of, project where you're literally controlling so many things, so many plates spinning at once, keeping everything moving like that. That kind of a thing really appeals to me, but performing on camera, I don't have any interest in that, especially when it comes to acting. And I mean, those people, it's an art, and I don't mean to be sort of dismissive of it, because it's definitely takes a talent, and it takes a certainly a level of discipline that I don't even know if I have. I mean, I'm certainly disciplined as a musician and everything, but I'm not so sure that that, you know, when I'm told about directors like Stanley Kubrick, who would make his actors do 60 takes of a scene. I mean, I would kill that guy. I would kill someone who made me do 60 takes of anything. You know, like that's just not how that is not how I roll. I mean, I'm more of a Neil Young. If you don't get it in 3 takes, you are fucked. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. And that's, you know, that's my process, and that's how I am. And I'm amazed at people who can be that disciplined and to really, you know, and I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan. I love his films. He made some of the best movies ever. 2001, favorite movie of all time. However, I could never. I mean, literally, I would kill him if I was asked to do something 50 times. I would not be employed at his production for very long. I can tell you that.
Have you ever incorporated any of that into like music videos that you make for your music?
You know, it's funny. There, and I don't think they're going to show this on the show, so I'm going to talk about it because, I mean, although there have been a couple of episodes that haven't aired still, we talked about a lot of the things that, you know, some of the offers that came out that we turned down from being on the show, and I have some real good ones that I turned down because I just wasn't interested. And one of those was a call from Ridley Scott's office, you know, who had called and said, you know, would you be interested in coming down to meet with, you know, and I was like, no, not interested. Not, I mean, you know, what an idiot. Like, I mean, that could have been a huge opportunity. And, you know, but at the time I was 20 years old or 21 years old. And I thought, you know, that the gravy train would never stop rolling. And so, you know, that was one of those opportunities that I did not pursue, that I probably should have at least met with them and then just heard what they had in mind. Because I was just like, nope, thanks, gotta go.
Yeah. They probably were like, really?
Idiot.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, couldn't have hurt to maybe have at least had a few extra phone numbers in your phone, you know.
Exactly. You know what I did do, and this I hope I don't get in trouble, because I this is something I did mention on the show, and I think it's hilarious. I didn't get the gig, but one of the things that I did do following up from Real World is I got a call from Stephen Meisel, who's a very famous photographer, who was working on a new book that Madonna was putting together about sex. And I think you know what book this is, the sex. Yeah. And they asked me to come down and do some test photos, which I did. I went down to their photo studio in Manhattan and took some test pictures for the book. I didn't get the gig, unfortunately, because it would have been really fun to roll around with Madonna for a couple of hours. Didn't happen.
That's awesome, man. Now, I think it's also super cool that you're a Stanley Kubrick fan, because I'm actually a big Stanley Kubrick fan myself. You were saying that 2001: A Space Odyssey is your favorite movie, because my favorite movie of all time is A Clockwork Orange.
Oh,
but on that same note, I just love what you were saying, because for anybody who's just not familiar with Stanley's style, Andre's not lying, because I'm also a huge fan of The Shining. Mark from Rock and Horror, who I mentioned earlier, that is his favorite movie. And you can do the research, because it's out there. That classic scene of Jack putting the axe through the door in The Shining was shot so many times. They went through about 60 doors with that axe, that I have this visual of if Jack Nicholson was trying to break into the bathroom that Andre was in, you wouldn't see an axe coming through. Eventually it would just be Andre's fist coming through it, hitting Jack and being like, I'm over it.
Fuck this. That's right.
Absolutely. So I think that's super cool. But nah, dude, you're totally right, because God bless Stanley. I really wish he was still with us today, but I can understand that driving absolutely anybody crazy with his style of shooting.
I just can't imagine that the level of intensity that you need to maintain to be, look, acting is, a lot of times, we make fun of actors and say how easy it is, but that couldn't have been easy to work on that set. It could not have been easy.
I have too much ADHD. I'd be so pissed off. Get your goddamn lines and hurry up.
Actually, if
how much this is costing?
Yeah, and actually, you're right, because anybody who's not familiar with Shelley Duvall, who played Jack's wife in that movie, also played Olive Oil in the Popeye movie.
Popeye.
That movie, actually, The Shining, actually played a big role in. I mean this with. I swear to God, Shelley, because I love you. This comes with a heart. It does play a role in the well-documented kind of breakdown that she had mentally in her career with the stresses of that particular movie and the stresses that Stanley put her under, because his directorial style was at the very least not common. Like that was just
traumatic.
Traumatic. That's just that was a Stanley thing. That was just not a style of directing that people were really accustomed to. But for what it's worth, from a couple of Stanley fans to you, Shelley, we love you, girl. We're not taking cheap shots at you. We truly understand. Angel, let's kick it over to you, brother. Thanks again for your patience. All the Metal Summoners and Andre's fans, thank you guys so much for sticking around with us. It's all you, bro.
Two more fan questions. Matt Porter wants to know, how do you stay looking so healthy?
Luck. No. I go running. I run 3 days a week, at least. Before the pandemic, I did that same running schedule, and I took a pretty heavy aerobics class twice a week on top of that, which I miss dearly, because that trainer, he's a boxer, he was the best. He kept me in the best shape. And unfortunately, this whole last pandemic year, it's been rough, and I have not been as in shape as I was and as I planned to be, because this last year has been really, really tough. And
break out those old Eric Nice workout videos.
That guy, I'll tell you what, that guy is a wonder, because he is in amazing shape. Talk about dedication. I mean, he has been. It's incredible the kind of shape that he has maintained, and he's 50 years old.
That dude's a machine.
And he looks incredible. Yeah. He looks incredible. So I know it can be done. But I try to just maintain, and I go running, probably, I'll do 6 miles, and it fucking kills me.
And Tommy Rice gets the last fan question of the night. He wants to know, would you do a battle jam on the Bango with John 5?
Oh my God, no. That dude is amazing. I would never. No way. I'm a singer. I'm a singer-songwriter. That's my forte. I'm a singer-songwriter who plays guitar. That guy is a guitar player. He's a monster guitar player. He's amazing. And I consider my forte singer, songwriting, and I'm no slouch at guitar. I'm okay, but I'm not him, and I know I'm okay with that. I mean, I think, guitar is funny because, I think even some of the people that I worship, they may not even be as good as, John 5, or, a good example would be Ace Frehley. I think Ace Frehley's a, amazing guitar player, came up with some of the greatest solos ever. But really, when it comes down to it, his stuff is not that complicated. It's not like he is doing nothing that anyone can't learn and play. The difference is, can you create it?
Yeah.
That's really the difference. And that's the kind of thing, like, look, I'm a good guitar player. What I do is it's interesting and it's cool. And if I work at a solo, I can come up with something that's cool. Maybe not as cool as Ace, but I'm a better guitar player than Paul Stanley. How's that?
Favorite Kiss song to play live? What is your favorite one?
Oh man, I love them all. Yeah, any song by Paul Stanley. I'm a huge fan of his songwriting. But probably 100,000 Years, because it's just such, it's so cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, he's the best. And it's funny because I was in a parody, full makeup parody Kiss band that played a couple of shows in Los Angeles. As sort of we did it at Halloween and then we did it one more time. So much work. Oh my God, was that so much work? But it was a blast. And, I was Paul, and we fired Ace Frehley on stage and brought up Vinnie Vincent in full makeup, and the first show, Eric Singer was there and mixed, did our live mix.
Oh, wow.
And it was, what an honor it was to be able to play for him and how complimentary he was after, specifically to me, which was, a huge thrill for him to say, how good I was at Paul. Because I mean, this is my childhood hero. I mean, and to this day, I think, Paul Stanley's,
your comment on his new soul album. I know, we're just getting ready to close, but I want to throw that out. Keep mentioning.
No, I think it's awesome that he's doing it. I think it's awesome that he's branching out and doing a style of music. He's and I follow him on Twitter. I know he's been a fan of that the soul genre his whole life. He was lucky enough to see people like Otis Redding live. How cool is that? So I know he's been a big fan of that whole thing, and look, I mean, we're all getting older, and I can't, and to talk about someone who's maintained. I mean, that dude looks amazing. He's fucking 75 years old. Yes. I mean, looks amazing, and so it's nice to see that he's evolving and changing, because he's got to have somewhere to go. Can't be doing this. You can't be, Gene Simmons is not going to be the demon forever. Dude,
if you get the right people, dude, you just kind of gave me like a brainwave, dude. Like, if you get the right people with the right dedication, that could be the most amazing Kiss show. Playing the 70s Kiss, firing Ace, having him replaced by Vinny, firing Peter, have him replaced by Eric.
We did exactly that. That's exactly what we did. And we brought
You had an Eric too?
No, what was hilarious is that we fired Peter and brought up the exact same drummer in Peter, because it's who could tell the difference? He's wearing the same makeup.
No, exactly.
So we brought up the same guy. And
Shane Kulik wasn't in the audience.
Yeah, right.
Hey, we're doing the revenge tour.
Eric Singer, I'm sure he thought that was funny as well, because I mean, those were all the things that we did, and that's why we were funny. We did all that kind of that crazy stuff, firing members on stage, and but again, so much work. So and at the end of the day, like, it was not worth it. I mean, like, all of the, it was worth it just for our own, fun, but the preparation, the investment in the costume. Are you kidding? Like, that alone, like I was in the hole for a month from that. You know what I mean? Like, so it was not financially worth it, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. And to have Eric Singer there and be able to
video it. Is there a copy? Is there a YouTube of this out there?
It's not. No, the YouTube. The only thing that's on YouTube is a clip of it, and I believe there's a clip of it online. And unfortunately, it doesn't have any of the fun banter. It just has like the songs, which were always performed very loyally. So when you watch the video, it just looks like a Kiss cover band in makeup playing the songs, because we weren't. The funny part was in between the songs, and I would do the Paul Stanley, I gotta know, all that kind of stuff.
Well, if someone was filming it, was filming it, then there's got to be a copy somewhere.
Oh, there is a copy, but it's definitely not available.
Andre, what would it be under if somebody was gonna just like a quick search? What would they look for?
I believe it's the name of the band, which was the Sick Army, which SSIK, Kiss backwards. The Sick Army.
Very cool. That's got to be from Matt Porter. Matt Porter, who calls in, does the Kiss Room. He's been doing it 10 years now. We were supposed to have Kiss at Montgomery County Community College in March. I think 1972, they were supposed to be there with Argent.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
I saw that tour. Oh, wait, no, 1972.
72.
No, I didn't see that tour.
Dude, that's super duper cool. Well,
Wow,
Andre, man, we got to thank you, man, for spending part of your evening with us, man. This has been
great.
super duper fun, super informative. And what's always very important to us is how you felt about your time on the show. Did you enjoy it? Did you feel respected? And did you enjoy the questions and topics you got to discuss?
Tonight, yeah, I had a great time. It was a pleasure. It was my pleasure. Nice meeting all of you.
Absolutely, man. Well, you're an alumnus now, man. Anything that you need, you just let us know. Feel free to use this interview in any way that it benefits for you, man. You can share it anywhere that you want. Anything that you just kind of dig on, man. We're happy to be of assistance, man. We love what we get to do, and talking to awesome guests like yourself, we really appreciate it.
Thanks again. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely,
Thanks,
man.
Andre.
Fans, Metal Summoners, thank you guys all so much. Real quick, Andre, for people that are looking, where can they find you?
Andre Comeau, Wrong Within, released in 2020. It's on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, everywhere. The new single Clean Break comes out next week, again, digitally everywhere. I will be playing in Houston and San Antonio, Dallas, the last week of April and first week of May. I don't know where, but yeah, I'm definitely playing those venues. They're contracted, so I will be there.
Get them up here, Jay.
Right.
And yes, I will be. I will be bringing the band to the East Coast, hopefully very soon as things open up. My whole band are a bunch of ex-New Yorkers, expats, and they're all anxious to get back home and play for their the loyal East Coast audience. So we'll be there very soon as well.
Very
Awesome,
cool.
man.
Well, we're here to support you.
We're here
Yes,
to
we
support
are.
you 100%, man. Good luck with your shows, and good luck again with the upcoming single and album release. We're super duper stoked for you. Thank you, fans, so much again for tuning in with us again this week. We love you guys so much. Guest announcement on Friday, as always. Next episode next Wednesday. Make sure you're hitting us up on all of our socials. Follow the Facebook page, the Twitter page. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube page so we can keep building that up and keep rocking out and get even, many more guests for you guys. We really appreciate it. Fans that want to travel and TMS fans of Nashville, Rockin' Pod, the beginning of August, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, we will be there. We really want to meet you guys and really spend some time with you guys. But coming out, support us, support the show, support the other shows that are also going to be there. Brad Lee will be there. The Kiss Room will be there. Matt Porter will be there. Rachel Logan will be there as well. She's a friend of the show as well. But there's a lot of good stuff going on in Nashville. But come out and spend your time with TMS and the Metal Summit, because we really want to see you guys and meet all you guys. But again, Andre, thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
Andre,
Bart.
Yes.
we really appreciate your time. For the Metal Summit, Jason Pearlswife, for Psycho Steve, for Angel Alamo, for Bobby Dreyer, I'm Jay. Thank you guys again. Again, upcoming announcement. Next week, next Wednesday, we got you as always. You guys, you right there on the other side of that camera. You guys have been watching the Metal Summit.
Yeah.